Hey there, my fellow Misfitians, and welcome back to another video. So for today, I thought I would do a more chill, laid back, kind of relaxed video where you get to see my day in the art studio and specifically work on a watercolor chart. So we have been going through this series with watercolor charts, and today I want to do my gradient charts and give you some tips and tidbits about those particular things that I have learned along the years with watercolor charts. But I also thought I would give you some of my feedback for my watercolor concentrates. So today I'm going to be just swatching my watercolor concentrates and really paying attention to how they mix with one another across brands, as well as how they kind of lay down, and give you my thoughts on that. So if you are ready and willing to follow me on this journey, let's go ahead and begin. So I actually already started this late last night, around midnight. I just decided to start working on it. And this is typically how I do my gradient charts. But typically what I do is I'll start with the very first row. You can probably see that I have several rows already kind of drawn out with blocks on them. But for the very first row, what I typically do is just a simple gradient and then pull down the color with water. So these are all just one color with a smooth gradient slowly getting lighter. And the reason why I do this is because I want to see, first off, what colors don't do well at all. Because I don't want to continue to mix those colors and waste paper and waste paint. There's no point in doing that. So you can see right here, my ice blue did not do very well. It has kind of a flecky appearance to it. Hopefully you can see that on camera, as well as my slate blue from the Radiant line. This is probably just because these two paints are very, very old. They're probably like 4 or 5 years old now. So I'm starting to get a little bit of that with my ultra blue, but it's not enough for me to be like, nope, I'm not going to use that anymore. So you can also see a pretty big difference already. And let me see if I can zoom you in a little bit so that you can really see. In fact, I might just pick it up. So you can kind of see the flecking here, but you can also kind of see how the different brands work with gradients already. So the Radiant line is always very, very radiant, just like the word says. It's very brilliant and bright and vibrant, but it does typically not, let's put it in, it doesn't dilute as smoothly, especially when compared to the Echo line. So this one is an Echo line and this one is an Echo line, but this one is the Radiant. And these two are almost exactly the same color. That's why I stuck them next to one another. But you can really see where the Echo line kind of comes more into a smoother dilution for this gradient compared to the Radiant line. That might be something that appeals to you or might not. I just like to note that whenever I'm going through my gradients, whether it be with concentrates or with paints. You can learn a lot via your gradients. You can see right here, even with the panes from Hydrus, it basically, the water just went straight up and sucked into it. A lot of the Hydrus do that. I have found they, basically these are all the Hydrus, which are light fast. The rest of these are not light fast. But basically what they do is you'll put the paint down and then you'll slowly water it down and pull it down until it becomes lighter. But as it dries, the water will just bleed back into the color. So that's something that I've noticed with the Hydrus. That doesn't always happen with the Radiant line. Sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. You can kind of see it a little bit here with the Echo line, but not as prominent as it is with the Hydrus. So I'm going to keep going with the colors that I have basically decided to keep playing around with, and you're gonna see me swatch a ton of different colors. And one thing that you're gonna learn as you do gradient charts is that harmonious colors tend to do better with one another. So as I said earlier, I am doing just blues for this particular chart and playing around with those blues. I am just going to be doing blues. I'm not going to be adding yellows or pinks to this. And it's because a lot of times the colors that you find yourself using the most when you're doing gradients are colors that are close to one another on the color wheel. So those would be colors that are in the blue family or that are in kind of the teal turquoisey family. Those are the ones that you typically will find yourself using more often than not. So I like to create like sheets of those. So I can see them all at a glance. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to be using turquoise a lot over and over again. This is kind of how I keep my sanity when I'm doing these, because it's very easy to get lost while you're doing these, just to kind of lose track of where you are at. But another kind of little tidbit when you're dealing with gradient charts is that order can actually play a role. So you will notice that some colors work really, really well together in a specific order, whereas others do not. So sometimes you'll notice that your light color will bleed very, very easily into your dark color. And sometimes vice versa, your dark color will actually bleed better into your lighter color. And that is just because of the paint property and how it's together. I'm actually going to do that with this. So this one was turquoise blue, and it was iris blue. And I'm gonna flip those. So what I'm gonna do this time is work with the iris first. I have a feeling these two colors were really pretty together. So anytime I have a color combo that does look pretty together, but maybe didn't blend the way I wanted it to, I wanna flip those colors and see how they work opposite order. So I'm gonna start with the iris blue this time. And pull it down into the turquoise. And hopefully you can kind of see the difference, but these two colors look really, really pretty together. But as you can really tell a difference, in my opinion, the lighter turquoise blue does a lot better going into the iris blue compared to the iris blue going into the turquoise. It kind of has a little line, and that is just because iris blue is very, very staining. So as soon as you put the iris blue on the paper, it just adheres to it, and it can stain it and create kind of a line. Now, that's not a bad thing per se. It just means something that you have to keep in mind when you're swatching your colors. And that's one reason why swatching with gradients is so important. Because with watercolor, there's so many different factors since it's transparent that you can have, such as two pigments might not go well together. They might totally buck against one another, like two personalities that just hate each other. They can be like mean girl mentality and stuff. So that's why it's always really important to swatch your colors and kind of get an idea of what they look like as you go back and forth. So another tip that I'm going to give y'all when it comes to mixing or doing gradient charts, specifically mixing colors. When you're putting your gradient charts together, it's always good to prep your paints on your palette. So what does that mean? A lot of times when I first started doing gradient charts, I would just go from one color to the next and never pre-mix the middle combo color, which is a problem. It doesn't create as smooth of a gradient from one to the other. So that is one reason why now you'll notice even here with my little swatches, I'm mixing the colors as I go. I'm not just dipping into one color and then dipping immediately into the next. I'm slowly transitioning into both. So I'm going to continue swatching a little bit and you'll just watch me. And then as I start to finish this, we'll come back and do some final thoughts. So I am officially done. I still have a good half of the paper that I can do, but I'm going to stop for today and just show y'all what I got done. I basically got half of the chart done and it's all beautiful blues from Watercolor Concentrates. I thought before we said adios, I thought that I would just tell you a couple of things about the brands that I used and what my thoughts are on them, because a couple of you have asked about Watercolor Concentrates. I actually don't use Watercolor Concentrates a lot, and the reason is because the Hydrus line, which is light fast, I don't really like the way they paint. I have a couple of colors that I do like, that I do occasionally use, mainly the blues, which I did play around with today. But if you gave me the option, do you want to paint with the Hydrus line or do you want to paint with the Radiant, P.H. Martin's Radiant watercolors, or even the Echo line that are not light fast? If you gave me a choice, I would definitely pick the ones that are not light fast, just because I feel like for me, they're more enjoyable to paint with and they perform more of how I would want a watercolor concentrate to perform. However, that being said, I don't paint with them a lot because a lot of people have asked me to paint with colors that are light fast. So a lot of times I am trying to basically work on what I envision in my head, and try and make it as close as possible with paints that are light fast. And typically those are my pigment tube paints. So I actually don't use watercolor concentrates a lot. However, I think I would if I didn't have to worry about light fastness, because I absolutely love them. I love painting with them. They're one of the things that just really sparked my creativity with watercolor back in the day when I first started this channel, actually. I always loved painting with watercolor, but I just found a rebirth kind of my love for watercolor when I started painting with the P.H. Martin's Radiant line. And I still have a sweet spot in my heart for those. But the Echo line, I will say, I really enjoy working with them. The way they make them, the color just seems to surf over the page a lot easier, and whatever you mix them with, they tend to surf very easily with, so you'll have smoother transitions with them. So I really do like the Echo line, but I would say just because of that sweet spot in my heart, my favorite brand for watercolor concentrates would be the P.H. Martin's Radiant line. So hopefully that gives you some little tidbits and helps with gradient charts as well as watercolor concentrates and what I really like. If you like this video, please make sure to give it a like and subscribe if you're new here. I would love to see your comments down below if you have any questions of things that you would like for me to do in the future, just products or supplies that you'd like for me to play around with. I'm going to be doing more vlog style stuff in the future, so make sure to leave a comment down below. I'd love to see those, and I'll see you next time, y'all. Bye!